We were talking about poverty, and we were also trying to discuss about the various factors that causes the poverty. Poverty itself is a very big topic, a very big concern for every nation. When the number of poor is estimated as a proportion of people below the poverty line, now the most important thing that we also need to understand here is that poverty which was prevailing in villages and rural area. Good morning and welcome to the third session of Challenges Facing the Indian Economy. We were talking about poverty, and we were also trying to discuss about the various factors that causes the poverty altogether. In this session, we are going to see what are the limitations in terms of measurement, and we are also going to look what are the statistics that are really concerning behind this poverty. So let's go forward and try to understand the topics for today. These are the topics that we are going to cover: limitations of poverty measurement, the number of poor in India, poverty statistics. Quite interesting. Why? Because we also need to know how numbers really work in this matter, and what causes poverty. We have been trying to understand this, yet we would also try to go about and try to bring in some of the measurements and the facts and figures all together. So with that, let's try to get into the session and try understanding the concept in depth. The limitations of poverty. Poverty itself is a very big topic, a very big concern for every nation, and that's what we have been trying to understand in each and every session of this lesson. Now, if you start looking in here, the measurement of poverty has its own limitation. We are not able to measure as and when we want. There are a lot of challenges, there are a lot of factors that are limiting the concept of poverty. One of them is the official estimation of poverty has not been able to be successful in India. The reason is that we have attempted to find out alternative methods, but yet we are not being able to come with one standardized method that could tell us that we have been able to successfully complete it. So that is why we say that this is a very big challenge altogether. Second thing, for instance, our great Nobel laureate and Professor Amartya Sen, one of the greatest economists that India had ever given birth to, was a person who had even come out with an index called as the Sen Index. This is one of the most important index, and of course this was considered for the Nobel Prize altogether. This index is being used to measure the poverty. He had brought in certain parameters to understand how poverty exactly works. So there are other tools such as poverty gap index and squared poverty gap. So both of them are some of the factors through which we have been able to measure poverty. But again, the accurate means and statistical methods have not yet been achieved altogether. So moving forward, the number of poor in India. How many people are exactly poor in India? How many people are really struggling? What is the factors behind them? We are yet to come to a value here. But then, when the number of poor is estimated as a proportion of people below the poverty line, it is known as head count ratio. Moment you try to understand and put people below the poverty line and tell them that these are the number of people, we call it as an head count ratio. Now, the number of head count really matters in India because every single time we need to understand what really matters in terms of the poverty, because more the number of people below the poverty line, we are definitely going to see a different kind of statistics, a different kind of methodology altogether. So it's mandatory that we start understanding the head count ratio, we start understanding the number of people who are still below the poverty line. That will help us to eradicate poverty, bring people out of that factors altogether. The official data on poverty has been made available to the public by the Planning Commission, one of the greatest bodies in India which governs in terms of economy, in terms of planning and direction. It's also estimated on the basis of consumption of the expenditure data that has been collected by the NSSO, the National Sample and Survey Organization. So we do have some data, we do have some statistics. which are trying to tell to the people that these are the number of people who are suffering in terms of poverty. These are the statistics, these are the ratios, these are the counts under which India has been struggling a lot. But then all these numbers, all these statistics, all these values are only for us just to look into it, but the actionable items in terms of understanding poverty, in terms of making poverty even more eradicated or taken out of the picture, yet needs to be discovered. There needs a formula, there needs a methodology through which we can completely eradicate it. Moving forward, poverty statistics. Now, we are going to talk about some numbers, though I know that the numbers are really going to be something out of the box as of right now, because these numbers might not matter to us at this juncture, at this point, because they are quite old. But still, this number will throw us a picture where we can understand, estimate, and go forward in terms of poverty eradication. So, starting from the year 73-74, more than 321 million people were below the poverty line. So that's a number for us first to understand. 321 million people below the poverty line. Quite a big number we are talking about. But in the year 1999-2000, this number has come down to 260. So you can just look at the improvement that we have done altogether. About 61 million people have been brought down. So that's quite a big improvement, which I would like to say, because when you look at the numbers itself, from 321 to 260, we have done quite an amount of exercise, quite an amount of improvement to bring down this number. So what we are trying to understand here is that 55% of people in 1973-74 were below poverty line, and now when you start looking it down here, only 20% or 26% of people are there under the poverty line. And even more, to give you a recent statistics, it's only 20% of India's population that is below the poverty line. So quite an amount of improvement, 55% to 20%, we have been able to overcome more than half almost. So that is where we are able to see that statistics in terms of has helped us to eradicate the poverty. It is now telling us that India is making some developmental effort in terms of reduction towards poverty, in terms of understanding poverty better and trying to eradicate it completely. Now, this is where we are trying to also understand that the poverty has come down about 75%. So 75% of the time we have been able to work out, bring out a measure to bring people out of the poverty line, make them understand the necessity and need, and that has been fantastically done here. So that's why I would say that 75% of the time we have been working, trying to pull out the people. Now there's only about 20 to 25% left, and probably in another 5 or 10 years down the lane, even that will get completely eradicated. Now the most important thing that we also need to understand here is that poverty which was prevailing in villages and rural area has also been removed. Why? Because we have started providing them with programs, with thought processes, with ideas and innovations through which they are also moving towards a proper livelihood. They are able to get their basic food, shelter and clothing. And we want the people to get away from poverty both in the rural sector as well as in the urban sector. So somewhere statistically we have planned, we have been able to execute, and we have been able to discover how we can grow further and develop the economy altogether. Moving forward. Now some of the other statistics that we also need to know here is that in the 1990s, the absolute number of the people in rural areas declined. So that's very, very important. It has been declining and it has been a steady growth progress altogether, whereas in urban counterpart, it has been increasing. So this is very, very important. In the rural sector, it is coming down, and in the urban sector, it is coming up. The reason was very, very clear. Why? Because there was a shift in the people from rural to the urban sector. Many people in the rural areas quit their agricultural profession, they gave out their lands, they gave out all the assets, and they started moving towards the urban sector in search of job. Now what did this lead to is that in the urban sector, people did not have much of employment, so there was a rise in unemployment, they were not able to get proper income, so there was also a problem in terms of the migrant labor issue altogether. So after 1990, say about 2004-2005, we have been seeing that there has been a steady rise in terms of the urban poor situation altogether. The poverty ratio has also declined continuously for both urban and rural after 2005. So even there we have made an effort, because we are trying to make people learn some skill and start working on that so that they will be able to overcome the poverty in a period of time. During the 73 to 2000, right about 27 years, there's been a decline in the number. So in 27 years, we have been able to understand what needs to be done in order to reduce poverty, and that's the greatest effort taken up by the Indian government in order to bring people on the same balance. But the nature of decline in two parameters is not encouraging. There are two parameters which we need to understand here. The ratio is declining at a much slower rate than the absolute number of people, that is, who are poor in the country. Sometimes if you start seeing at the economy, one side we are very proud that our GDP is moving ahead, we are showing some positive numbers of growth, but the other side we are getting afraid by the factor that the GDP is actually not contributing in the eradication of poor. So it is very, very important, very, very essential that at some point of time we eradicate this poor, we eradicate people out of the situation, and we start moving towards a better growth or a better line altogether. Moving forward, what causes poverty? Some of the examples of poverty I want you to understand. One is the low level education and skill. The second factor is health and sickness. Discrimination. This is one word which I would like you to spend some time with. In India, the reason for poverty is not just income. That's where I like to emphasize again and again. Income will not be a yardstick for measurement. What will be the true yardstick for measurement is the education, the health factor, and discrimination. Many of the people in India, way back if you look from 70s onwards, illiteracy was one of the biggest challenges. People were not interested in studying, they were interested only in earning income. What did this lead into is that the intellectual capital of India had come down. If people would have spent their time in educating themselves to the minimum standards expected, automatically they will understand how to pick up a job and how to earn money altogether. But unfortunately, what had happened in India is that people were just carried away by the factor that they can earn some extra income, they can earn some money, so they gave up on education. The dropout rate in India started going up at a higher pace altogether. Now, the second factor is that the healthcare and the sickness factor. Till now, in India, there is about 30 to 40% of India which is still not covered under the insurance. Why? Because our people still believe that insurance is only a cost factor. You just keep on paying for the insurance, but you are not going to get anything in return. So there has not been a clear-cut understanding on the factor that you need to insure your health, you need to take care of your health, which is the topmost priority. Because if the people of the country start falling sick, they are not able to maintain proper health, then they will not be able to contribute to the development of the nation. They will not be able to attend their work. They will not be able to earn income. Automatically, this will start affecting the GDP of the nation. It will also start affecting the economic health of the nation. So it is very, very important. At some point of the time, they have to start paying attention to health, and they need to take care of the healthcare insurance and policies. That will actually help to build a stronger India altogether. And the third part is called as the discrimination factor. The race, religion, color, caste, sex, creed, all these factors are a very big thing that leads to poverty. Why? Because in India, there are some parts where I would like to mention that these are the reasons why poverty are being caused altogether. They have been pushed in terms of religion, in terms of caste, in terms of creed, in terms of color. There are so many factors that come inside. Because of which, what happens is that that particular community, that particular sect of people are not able to get the best of the opportunities. They are deprived out of their basic factors or their basic rights. Automatically, this leads into depression, this leads into a lot of pressure, and they go into poverty. They start believing that they are not capable for anything, they are not being given the opportunity, and they will not be able to earn. Sometimes this discrimination have gone to the extent of committing suicide. So that is where India has also lost a lot of people because of this factor. And there has been also a very, very clear interest in terms of understanding that because of discrimination, people are not able to expose their talent, they're not able to come up altogether. So discriminatory factor is also one of the major causes for poverty. Now, moving forward, what causes poverty? Again, in terms of the social, economic, political factors, the social inclusion, the unemployment, indebtedness, unequal distribution of wealth. So we're going to talk about all these factors in a very, very short while in terms of understanding them in depth. Now, when I talk about the political equality, the social factor, India is a country which has got numerous numbers of political parties. Each one of them come to the people and they start promising things that cannot be done. They are not realistic promises. So now what happens is that one party in one region is able to perform well, whereas the others do not do it. So there's a lot of political inequality. You're not getting the same kind of leadership and governance everywhere. Similarly, the social exclusion. Many societies in India are not being exposed or not being given the opportunity to come out and explore the opportunities that are being presented. So what happens is that society is binding the people, it is keeping them inside the shell and they are not able to move out, because of which they are deprived, depressed and driven down to poverty altogether. The unemployment problem, that is also a very, very important thing. Why? Because more the unemployment, automatically poverty, because you are not able to earn income, you are in a state of depression, you feel that there is nothing left for me, so I just want to go away from this factor. So unemployment is also a very big cause for poverty. Next, the indebtedness. This is one of the most important things, because I don't have money. I have to borrow money from people. I don't have a job, so I need to find out people from where I can borrow money, and I am getting into a position of a debtor. Since I am not able to repay back the money, that debt pushes me to poverty, and at one fine morning, I am not able to come out of it. I collapse myself and I say that I am a poor person forever. So another reason is that indebtedness which is there. Last but not the least, the unequal distribution of wealth. 20% of India's population is controlling 80% of India's wealth, and that's a hard-driven fact or a truth. But that is the problem in India. The 20% of the people are controlling 80% of the people, which means the larger section of the society, the larger section which is available, 80% of the people, they are not able to get an equal distribution of income. They are not able to get the same kind of luxury. They are not able to afford the same kind of life as the 20% of the people are affording. So this leads to a very important situation. This leads for a very, very important cause altogether. 20% of the people controlling 80%. So unequal distribution of wealth. So somewhere down the lane, it now calls for a public-private partnership where these people have to come forward, share their wealth and make efforts in order to grow the persons out of poverty. So it is very, very important that we reduce the gap between the rich and the poor. Now, moving forward, what causes the other factors of poverty is that 70% of the Indians were engaged in agriculture during the British time period. So what happened because of that is they did not have anything else. The living standards were extremely poor. The British did not give them an opportunity to earn money or explore any other new options. What they were able to do is that they just kept the Indians right under their thumb. They just made them feel that they are as born slaves. So the British were primarily responsible for making India a poor nation. That is one of the most important factors that we need to understand in poverty. Had the British given us an equal employment opportunity, an equal area where we could go ahead and explore the opportunities, we would not have been a poor nation. Most of the people during the time of the British Raj were only farmers and they did not know anything more than farming. Britishers did not promote India into the education system. They rather made us to work as slaves, work as casual laborers, so that we don't earn money, we don't educate ourselves. That was one of the primary reasons why India was driven to poverty. Next, the British policies were involved in sharply raising the rural taxes. The British were taxing the Indian people to pay more and more for their benefit, that is for the benefit of the East India Company. In order to pay more and more tax, our farmers had to struggle in the land. They had to work day and night in order to pay the taxes that were raised by the British Empire. So this becomes very, very important here, that the Indians did not have time to build up their skills or reskill themselves. They did not have an opportunity to go forward, explore and see what would be the options that we have in order to make ourselves better, in order to grow, in order to get better income. So the Britishers were people who were trying to control the trade, the commerce, the education, every single sector, making the Indians completely depressed. That was one of the reasons for poverty. And under the British, again, if you start seeing the export of food grains, as many as 26 million people died in famine. If you see that, Britishers exported Indian grains. The food that was grown in our country was exported to other countries in the world. During the Second World War time, Britishers had exported a lot of grains in tons and tons from our country to their country or to any other European countries. But unfortunately, they were not able to help the people during the time of famine, because of which 26 million people in India died. Look at the cruelty part. They were not ready to help. At the same time, they wanted India to completely get disturbed and destroyed. So that was one of the reasons why you would see that the poverty in India started rising right after the independence period. Moving forward, with this, we come to the conclusion of today's session. Thank you for joining me on this wonderful session. I hope and believe that this was interesting, informative, and educative. In the next session, we will come up with better ideas, better thought process about poverty, how to overcome it, and what are the different factors altogether. Until then, stay tuned, stay blessed, and stay enlightened forever. Thank you once again for joining me.